to chapter 15 in the Course in Miracles. This chapter is on the holy instant and also about special relationships, and I really want to begin today spending some real time talking about what a holy instant is. Just a couple other announcements though. We have some new books on the book table. Of course, Brad's book, Lessons in Love, he had it here last time, but it's doing really well. There you go. Hold it up, Brad. The Living A Course in Miracles this week came out in French, and Lessons 101 came out in Spanish this week. So those are two new editions. And these are the calendars for A Course in Miracles if you want. These are 13, but seeing how this is the last month of the year, $10 to kind of clear them out. Also, reminder about the conference that's going to be here in New York City next April 17, 18, 19. We had 50 reduced tickets to start. We're down to 4 left. So it's $150 off the price by calling the number that's listed either on our website or on that little handout that I gave you earlier. So who's not been here before? I know you two gentlemen have not. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, okay, 6, 7 people. All right, good. We're a little smaller today. I think it's because we're so close to Christmas, less than 2 weeks away. I think I'd just like to move right into talking about what a holy instant is. And actually, before you go to take this other sheet that I handed out, and we're going to be looking through that. But first, just a little lead into that. In Lewis Carroll's book, Through the Looking Glass, there is a scene where Tweedledum says to Alice that the Red King is dreaming her, and should he awake, she will be poof. She will be nowhere. But then she begins to take this seriously, and she tells Tweedledee and Tweedledum to stop talking so loudly because they might wake the Red King. And Tweedledee says to Alice, well, really don't worry about it because you're not real. I mean, you don't really exist anyhow. And Alice starts to cry, and she starts saying, I am too real. Right? But that's really a part of what the Course in Miracles is telling us. The Course in Miracles is telling us that this whole thing is all a dream. It seems very, now people get upset about that, and they're saying, well, no, I'm awake. I'm perfectly awake. But the Course in Miracles actually says, when all your time is spent in dreaming. All your time is spent in dreaming. So your nighttime dream and your daytime dream are still dreaming in the daytime. And all that daytime dream is that's all that cogitation stuff that's going on, which has a lot to do, for example, with our special relationships, which we're going to be talking about today, and all the problems and all the anxieties and all the worries. There's always problems and anxieties and worries going on within the context of any dream, including our nighttime dreams. There's always some frustrating element. You can't get somewhere, you're being blocked. There's just some kind of a problem. Well, in terms of the Course, this whole world was created so that we would have a problem, so that we wouldn't pay attention to God, so that we wouldn't pay attention to home. We would be so distracted by all this stuff that seems important to us that we would just never, ever, but at the same time that we have this distraction, we also have this feeling that something is wrong. I mean, that something is missing, that there's some element that we're not quite getting, which is about the disconnection that we feel from some sort of higher source. So on the sheet about what a holy instant is, first of all, the word holy instant appears 102 times in the Course. So obviously it's an important theme that it's trying to get to. But the word, that phrase, holy, appears 34 times in this particular chapter, in chapter 15. So obviously that's part of what we're trying to get to. And I've picked out about 30 of those different times that it appears in this particular chapter for it to highlight. So I say, in essence, a holy instant is an experience in this world which is not of this world. Or another way to say that, it's an experience in time which is not, has nothing to do with time. It happens sort of outside of time. In that sense, a holy instant is really kind of a mystical experience. When I wrote this book several years ago, what is mysticism, I outlined some of the basic characteristics of a mystical experience. And if you read, let me turn to this page where I think it's on page 14, just some of the different characteristics of a mystical experience also would describe what a holy instant is. For example, it's ineffable. Now this is sort of interesting that we start off with ineffable, because we're going to spend the next half hour or more trying to talk about something that's ineffable. So how do you talk about something that you can't talk about? Well, we're going to try to talk about it because we have little arrows, if you will, that kind of point to this experience, and we could sort of say it's like this. It's for this reason that when the disciples come to Jesus and they say to him, "Why do you teach in parables?" And he says, because in hearing they don't hear, and seeing they don't see, so they need something else that just becomes like a story is something that lingers in the mind, and we kind of begin to get the essence of it, or the gist of what's really going on, right? So it's ineffable, but nevertheless it's something that is quite real, and we know it. I forgive you. It's quite a real experience. Another quality that's typical of all mystical experience is called a noetic quality. Now, what noetic means is that you come to feel as though you now know something as a result of this experience. In other words, you've had some sort of an insight, something has been revealed to you. And let's keep in mind again that what so much of the Course is about, it's about our remembering the truth, or another way to talk about that, a word that you know that I like to use even better than remembering, is to recognize. In other words, to bring back into the mind what the mind already knows. So we already know this. We already know the truth. We already know home. What the Course is saying, actually, that's what we really know. We really know home. We really know heaven. If this whole thing is a dream, and at some point we awaken from the dream in heaven or in home, that's the place where the Course says, where you are truly welcome, you know. It's the place, another way we could talk about it, it's the place where we've always been. So in that sense, this is a foreign land, and our experience is that we have somehow or another lost our home or our way, and we're now having this experience of remembering this once again. This is the noetic quality. And the noetic quality also has a kind of aha kind of revelatory quality about it. That's one of the intentions of the Zen koans, for example, is to get you to kind of break through to get to a little bit of a and in terms of what Brad was talking about, I always pick up Brad uptown, bring him down along with me. What we were talking about in the car, it's not just an aha experience, but if you really get it right, if you really understand what the Course is saying, Ken's last book that he wrote, actually it's been transcribed from the last lecture that he gave us, is Taking the Ego Lightly, right? So the aha experience should really become a aha. I mean, you know, when you see the trick, you know, it's like a trick. It's like a game, and And the problem is that on the ego level, we take this game very seriously. I mean, this is like this is a play. But we take it all very, very seriously. And it shouldn't be taken, you know, sometimes you can watch, maybe kids arguing or adults arguing or whatever, and you just realize it's silly. It's just silly. I mean, it's silly that people would allow themselves to fall into this kind of insanity. But we do. We allow ourselves to fall into this kind of insanity and to take things seriously that there's no need to be taking it seriously at all, okay? Another characteristic of a mystical experience is called passivity. Now, what passivity means is you are not in control of the experience. You are not the director, or you can't direct a mystical. If you feel like you're having a mystical experience and you try to direct it and you try to kind of take control a little bit, you will lose it. It'll be gone. It'll just disappear, just like that. It's like if you ever have a déjà vu experience. I think we've mentioned this before. If you have a déjà vu experience, what you really need to do to kind of enjoy that is just kind of hang with it, because if you then try to say something, you're with a friend, oh, I'm having a déjà vu. Well, you're not anymore. You know, you just lost it when you know, the ego wants to go, oh, want to brag about it a little bit. You know, I'm having this kind of experience. Well, now it's gone. Right? It's gone because you had to talk about it. Right? So the best thing to do is don't talk about it. Just later you can talk about it after it's all over. And you know, earlier this afternoon when we were having that conversation, there was something about that was like a memory to me that had happened once before. So that's what I mean by passivity. You're really not in charge. This is a higher than you are. The ego has no control here. This is in the hands of the Holy Spirit, or this is in the hands of God. And that's the only place it can be. This, again, is one of the major emphasis in the Course. By that I mean the major emphasis is on turning everything over to the Holy Spirit. We have tremendous resistance to doing this, or turning everything over to God. It's at this point, by the way, that I think the Course and Islam have a very interesting overlapping similarity, because in Islam, it's about surrendering to the will of Allah, right? Surrendering to the will of God. Well, now the Course, the word surrender never ever appears in the Course, not even once. But it does emphasize how important it is that we turn our decision making over to the guidance of the Holy Spirit. So, and the word the Course is used, the willing, to be willing to turn it over, not to think that you are in charge. In this chapter, chapter 15, and we saw it earlier in chapter 13 as well, there is a phrase, do you want to be hostage to the ego or host to God? You know, and as it is, we're kind of hostage to the ego. I mean, it has this kind of grip on us that we don't seem to be able to loosen or to get free from. And being host to God, rather than hostage to the ego, is actually a very beautiful experience, because it's literally experience in which you feel free. You know God is in charge, and you're so grateful that God's in charge, which means that you're trusting. It means that nothing can really go wrong, even if it looks like something is going wrong. Right? I mean, even if, let's say, I was giving a talk in London a few years ago, and a guy told me about an experience he had. He was in a car with another fellow, and their car was going into the side of a truck. They don't use the word truck, but it was going into the side of a truck. And just as this is happening, he heard. It's interesting what he heard. Don't worry. This has to happen. Everything's going to be okay. Isn't that a strange thing? Here's your car about to go into the side of a truck, and he hears, "Don't worry. That's interesting. The second line. This has to happen. like it's a part of the story or the drama of this. The Course is pretty clear about that everything that's happening to us, even those things that we would look at and say, well, I never asked to run into a truck, or I never asked for this experience, or I never asked for cancer, whatever it is. Later on, you kind of look back at the experience and you say, now I understand exactly why I had to go through that experience, because that was a part of the whole. That was a part of the whole plan. It's much easier to see this in retrospect. As Kierkegaard once said, life can only be lived forward, but it can only be understood backward. And so we look backward and we understand, but at the time we're moving forward into it, we don't always understand what's going on. So passivity, another quality is this, which we're talking about quite a bit about today, I think, is a transient quality. Now what I mean by transient is it appears that the experience seems to happen outside of time. Or another way to put it is it's as though time stops. You're just not in time. Because what does the ego do? See, the ego, what it does in time is that it worries. Right? So we're worrying about events. Again, when I had encephalitis several years ago, and then after I came out of the coma, and I wasn't really back for a while, although I was back, but my eyes were open and I was functioning. And my wife said many months after that, she said, the strangest part of that experience was you stopped planning. And that's true. I hadn't thought about the fact that I'd stopped planning. Right? But there was just, and she said, you did things that you would never, you laid on the couch. And you just laid, it's like, I would never lay on the couch. Right? But there was just like, it was a matter of just, I was just kind of enjoying letting things be what they were. Just sort of looking and just sort of seeing, but not doing anything in particular. Eventually, it all comes back. The ego comes back. The game comes back. The play comes back. The work comes back. You can't hold on to these sort of things. You got to earn money. You got to pay bills. You got to get involved and do what you're supposed to do. Another characteristic of the mystical experience that I'm talking about, I'm really equating mystical experiences and holy instances, is what's called the oceanic quality. And the oceanic quality is one that's really nice, and that's the quality where you feel as though there's this kind of blending or this kind of merging of everything. That it's sort of becoming one with whatever it is. So if you're in nature, then there's a sense of becoming one with nature. Dr. Ken Wapnick really said that his initial mystical experiences, he grew up in Brooklyn, was laying on the floor in his parents' apartment listening to classical music and becoming one with that music, right? Just sort of merging with the music. For me, it was nature. For Ken, it was music. It could be other kinds of experiences, that art or just falling in love is also that sense of blending and merging and becoming one with it. But again, in all these kind of cases, the ego has a way of coming back in. So what the Course is trying to help us to do, I think, is to practice. That word practice comes up a lot. Practice allowing for many, M-A-N-Y, many little, many mystical or experiences, and as you can get more and more accustomed to doing this and to allowing for these moments, then we increase the likelihood that we'll be able to sustain these moments, so that it's not something that just seems to happen once in a while or when we're meditating, but it can happen while you're riding the bus or the subway. Or, Helen had an incredible mystical experience riding the subway here in New York, where in that particular experience, by the way, what she saw, I don't know whether you know about Helen's subway experience, but what happened was that she just felt herself merging with all these other people on the subway. And it was a very diverse group of people who were going to work, of all kinds of ages and dresses and, complexions, etc. And yet there was this, that it was all one thing. So let's look at some of these quotes that I pulled out from this chapter, from the Course. We'll just go down. The holy instant is this instant and every instant. The one you want it to be, it is a moment in which we remember God. So that's the noetic quality again, is the remembering God. But it's also this instant. And actually there's a part of the quality of having this experience that it's the only instant. I mean, it's the only time that there is, because there's also this sense of loss of the past, because the moment becomes so vivacious and real. There's no past in the mystical experience. There's no future in the mystical experience, because past is really a place where guilt is. So place is really in our minds. It's the thought that keeps coming into our minds. We go back, I wish I hadn't done that, or I wish I had, I would like to have changed that. I wish, and I think that's a kind of dreaming. How much time do we spend dreaming about wishing that what never happened hadn't happened? But that's the dream. We're making it real in our minds, right? And then the future stuff is fear. The future stuff is the what if I get sick? What if I don't have enough money? What if there's nobody to take care of me? What if, and not that any of that's happening, And if I can be here, right now, then there's no what if, or there's no if only, there's just now, and that's quite beautiful. Going into the next paragraph. Jesus therefore asks us, he says, I call to you to make the holy instant yours at once, for the release from littleness in the mind of the host of God depends on willingness and not on time. We're going to talk more about willingness, the greater and little willingness in a moment, but our littleness in magnitude also in a moment. So again, it's a decision. It's a decision that I'm making every moment as to whether I'm going to allow for this moment to be a holy instant. And it can be any time. It could be riding the subway, that you just allow for this holy instant to be there. And do you ever try that? I mean, literally try it. I mean, the Course would say deliberately, sit on a subway or a bus or whatever, and just imagine that you are that old guy sitting across from you. I mean, that and just try to feel what's he's just tired. He's just thinking about getting home and popping open a can of beer and flopping in front of the TV. I mean, that's what's going on, right? I mean, just try to feel what it is to feel what somebody else is experiencing. The next one. So a holy instant is a learning device. It's a learning device because the more that we can practice having a holy instant, the more we're going to eventually be leading to the holy instant. Now, by the holy instant, I mean into a place or to a space where it's not just an instant, but it becomes a state of awareness or consciousness that one can hold with consistency. And if you really go all the way with this, ultimately, I always like that word, ultimately. Ultimately, we're talking about enlightenment. Ultimately, we're talking about really remembering home. Ultimately, we're talking about reaching the kind of state that Jesus reached, right? Where he really remembers with consistency that he is the Son of God, and that this is something that cannot be lost once. And as you all know, I have a theory, you've heard me mention it earlier, that I think that's what happened to Ken. I think that, those of you who haven't heard this, I think that he slipped. I think he slipped into the big mind. I think he just got so close that he couldn't hold on to this illusory body anymore, and went home. Right. So there's the learning devices. The holy instant is a learning device because it's a place where at the time this is home. This is where I want to be with consistency. The body is a learning device. That's what it's a tool. It's an instrument that we're learning how to. And later I want to talk more about discipline and the body, and how we are very undisciplined. The Course says you are very undisciplined. You passively condone your mind's miscreations, and we sort of passively condone our miscreations all the time, and we allow for impulses like pleasure impulses to take charge. Those are bodily impulses, right? To overeat or to overdrink or to whatever, so that. But it's something which is not helping this instrument or this tool to be what this instrument or this tool could be. Time is a learning device. So we're in the world, in a body, in time, all to learn something, right? Or to remember something, to remember what home is and to be able to get back there. And then the miracle is a learning device as well. The miracle is the experience. It's like a holy instant. It's an experience of the presence of God inside our own minds. The next quote. The holy instant does not replace the need for learning, for the Holy Spirit must not leave you as your teacher until the holy instant has extended beyond time. So we're talking about a moment ago about extending the holy instant, holding the holy instant, keeping the holy instant, not allowing for these possible distractions that could come up for us to take the peace of God. There's a line in the section on peace later on we'll get to, which talks about how easily we throw our peace away. How here you are, you have this holy instant, and it's also simple. And then let's go back to the subway again. You see something you don't like, right? Or somebody's talking too loudly or whatever, and your peace of mind just, or you're watching the evening news and your peace of mind is, you just threw it away. But how could that happen? Or this incident, right? We give it up so easy when we could be holding it, we could be keeping it. The fact that somebody else is getting a little upset, that's a good one. The fact that somebody else gets upset and then you get upset because they're getting upset, that's just insanity. Just leave it alone. Let it be what it is. Right? Next quote. The holy instant is the Holy Spirit's most useful learning device for teaching you love's meaning. That's another characteristic of the mystical experience, or of this holy instant. That while that experience is occurring, you feel very much loved. And feeling very much loved is essentially related to feeling very much as though everything is being taken care of. Remember, one of the characteristics I said is the passivity quality of a mystical experience. So I think of passivity as kind of like being carried as a child. By that I mean that you are completely in the arms. You're literally you are trusting 100%. This person is going to take care of you. They're going to hold you. This is a loving mother or a loving father or whoever it is. And can anybody remember those moments of kind of like just being really taken care of, very, very gently being taken care of? Huh? As I had an experience once when I had a heart procedure, had a quadruple bypass a number of years ago. And they came afterwards they found out I had fluid on my lungs. So they wanted to do a little bedside operation where they were going to come in and put a little hole in my side to drain the fluid out of my lungs, right? And that was fine. It didn't hurt or anything because they numbed the area, so it wasn't a big deal. But this nurse, was there on my left-hand side. They're operating over here. I'm perfectly awake of it. She just holds my hand. But those of you who are nurses and nurses here, thank God for this wonderful profession you have. She just looked at me with this most incredible love on her face. I mean, that was her job. Her only job was to hold my hand and look at me with love while they were punching a hole in my side. But I thought, this is an angel. I mean, she was just like, never said, I don't even know her name, you know, just this angel who was there in this very loving role at that particular moment. Going on with these definitions. So in the holy instant, the laws of God prevail and only they have meaning. So the ego has no play in this experience at all. It's only the Course is very clear. There's the laws of God and there are the laws of the ego. And very much of the time we really follow the laws of the ego are things like an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You hit me, I hit you. You insult me, I insult you. Tit for tat. You know, those kind of, and some of the other silly laws literal laws that we get created. I was talking to a friend on the phone actually this morning who was telling me that she's getting married and how happy she is that she's getting married, but the guy that she's marrying has been married 3 times before, and the church has a restriction against that. You know, her church will not allow her. All right, so she's worried. Now she's going to have to go to another church because her church has this law about you can't marry. It's just insanity. All right, with this world. It's a worldly law that somebody came up with. Here's this couple that are in love with each other and they just want to do it, and they'd like to do it where they go to church, but they can't. Silly. It's just silliness. All right, let's look at the next column, the holy instant and the perfect communication. Now, this is something I'd like for us to get into a little bit today, and it's, again, this is hard to talk about because it's ineffable. Because it really transcends words. The holy instant says is a time which you receive perfect communication. Perfect communication would mean that there's no blockage in the communication. So a lot of the times when the ego is running the show, there's all kinds of, we're trying to deceive each other, we're trying to trick each other, there's lying going on, there's manipulation going on in business and in politics and relationships. That's the special relationship stuff we'll talk more. But that couldn't be true in a holy instant. It's a perfect communication. In the holy instant, God is remembered, and the language of communication with all your brothers is remembered with him. Now, the language of communication is not English or Spanish or French, or it's not a language that involves words. It's actually, and there's a line in the Course where it says, God does not understand words. All right. So it's really something which, it's another level. We're transcending the level. Words are mundane physical things. A written word is a mundane physical thing. A spoken word is a sound vibration. It's a mundane physical thing. We're transcending sound, we're transcending sight, we're transcending all of it. This is the level of knowing. Again, it's hard to talk about. In the holy instant, guilt holds no attraction. That would be, again, the past holds no attraction, since communication has been restored. The next one, in the holy instant, the condition of love is not for minds, the condition of love is met. I should put my glasses on when I read this. For minds are joined without the body's interference, and where there is communication, there is peace. Now notice a bit, without the body's interference. So one of the things that the Course is going to emphasize, we're talking about mind-to-mind communication, which does not involve a body. Let me read a little bit further with this. The Prince of Peace was born to establish the condition of love by teaching that communication remains unbroken even if a body is destroyed, provided that you see not the body as a necessary means of communication. So probably one of the primary ways that we could all identify with that is that we've all lost loved ones, parents, for example, that we've, by the time we're mature adults, there's less and less chance that our folks are still with us. And yet we may very well feel as though we communicate, that there's still some sort of dialogue. It's not a verbal kind of dialogue that's going on with our parents, or with the child, or with anyone who's passed, right? That still the connection has not been lost. Going on. The necessary condition for the holy instant does not require that you have no thoughts that are pure, not pure, but it does require that you have none that you would keep. All right. So this is a very important emphasis in the Course about not having secrets. Now, it's, again, as I've said before, this doesn't mean you gotta go tell everybody everything, because we don't care. And we're really not interested in hanging out dirty laundry. It's not gonna make you feel good, or it's not gonna make us feel good. But it does just mean that, see, what is guilt? Guilt would be the experience we have. Guilt is something that you would have to hide, right? You want to hide that, oh, I did that thing, and that thing that I regret in the past. This is something I can't talk about, right? Or whatever it is that I can't cheat on my taxes, or whatever it is. All right. So I have to, but that creates a sense of isolation and separation for us. So you just want to be thinking about, as we move through this life journey process, that I don't want to be doing something that's going to create the sense of guilt, which would then create the sense of separation. I want to be, whatever it is, whatever my activities are, I want them to be something that could be shared. Now again, all of our thoughts don't have to be pure thoughts, right? But then, as it says, but it does require that you have none that you would keep. And let's look at the next one. In the Holy Spirit, you recognize the idea of love in you and unite this idea with a mind that thought it and could not relinquish it. Now, it's in this same section, by the way. Maybe we'll get to it when we get into the booklet, provided we get into the booklet, where it says very clearly, God is an idea. And then in the next phrase it says, and you are an idea. You're an idea in the mind of God. And again, of course, you are not a body, but you're an idea. Now we're moving into something that's abstract here, right? Of course, at one point it says, divine abstraction, which is actually a definition for God, takes joy in sharing. So we're really sharing, on a non-physical. It says bodies don't have to be together in order for communication to occur, right? That's not what's required at all. We're eventually going to throw away the cell phones. We're really, and that last line of lesson 52, which I like to quote a lot. The last line of lesson 52 is, you're saying this to yourself now. Would I not rather join in the thinking of the universe than to continue to obscure all that's really mine with my pitiful, meaningless, private thoughts? So what are pitiful, meaningless, private thoughts then become the blocks to the awareness of God's presence. So these private thoughts, the thoughts that I think that I have to keep to myself, that can't be shared. This is also something that's keeping me from the kingdom. It's keeping me from really, really knowing on a higher level. All right. Back down to this list. The holy instant, you recognize the idea. I read that. Next to the holy instant and relationships. In the holy instant, you unite directly with God, and all your brothers join in Christ. So the mind, it's one mind. We're coming back to one mind together. In the holy instant, no one is special, for your personal needs intrude on no one to make your brothers seem different. There is no other. There's no in a real mystical experience, there is no, this is very important, there's no subject-object. And if we have no subject-object, then there's no difference. That's why this oceanic quality again, the merging of the mind into the one mind. Going a little further. The holy instance thus becomes a lesson in how to hold all your brothers in your mind, experiencing no loss or competition. The holy instance is not something we can have for ourselves alone. We must be willing to give it to our brothers and sisters as well. Now, when we give it to our brothers and sisters as well, let's say when we are in direct contact with our brothers and sisters, the way that we do this is that, A, we are loving, regardless of the circumstances. And remembering that everything that comes our way is coming our way either as a call for love or as an expression of love. So if it's coming as an expression of love, our job is to love back. If it's coming as a call for love, our job is to love back. It's exactly the same response. No matter how insane, somebody may be screaming at you, right? So your task at that point is to maintain sanity, to keep your peace of mind, let them be who they are. Don't start screaming back at them, because now then you'll be as insane as they are. And that's not where we want to go. A couple more on the bottom of this page, and we'll flip to the other side. The holy instant is given and received with equal willingness, being the acceptance of the single will that governs all thought. So there's one will. That's God's will, which governs all thought. And then all your relations are blessed in the holy instance, because the blessing is not limited. Let's flip the page over. In the holy instant, the sonship gains as one, and united in your blessing, it becomes one to you. In the holy instance, there is no conflict of need, for there is only one. How could you have any kind of conflict of need? In the special relationship, which we'll talk about in a moment, there is conflict of need. In the holy instant, we enchain all of our brothers and refuse to support either their weakness or our own. We'll talk about this in a little bit later in terms of our not making other people feel guilty. That's something that we often do. We would like, especially maybe in a work atmosphere, where you're not doing your job, so I'm going to make you feel guilty about the fact that you're not doing your job correctly, which just means that I'm just making myself feel guilty because I'm trying to make you feel guilty because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Right? In the holy instant, we share our faith in God's Son because we recognize together that He is wholly worthy of it. In our appreciation of His worth, we cannot doubt His holiness, and so we love Him. This is really the important part. Take the person that you have the most trouble with on this planet. I mean, the most disgruntled, that person, of course, that is your Savior. That is the one that is going to get you into heaven. And it's not that person is going to get you into heaven, but it's your forgiveness of that person. You're letting go of whatever this block is that's in between you, that's going to facilitate this process of release. And then let's look a little bit at the holy instant and God's plan for salvation. So the holy instant is a moment in which we willingly and gladly give over every plan. That's what, remember my wife saying, you stop planning. The holy instant is truly the time of Christ. For this liberating instant, no guilt is laid upon the Son of God, and His unlimited power is thus restored to Him, because we're not putting anything onto them. The holy instant reaches to eternity. See, that it's an instant, it's a moment in time, but it's a moment which begins to transcend time, right? And to the mind of God, and is only there love has meaning, and only there can it be understood. Only when the love is there can it be understood. Love is something that we know that we're completely accepted. One of the characters, some of you read Anita Morjani's book, Dying to Be Me, and one of the things that she said in that experience, and I wish I could quote it directly, but to summarize it just for a second. She felt that she felt completely loved, that she felt completely taken care of, and completely, it wasn't anything that she had done to deserve this. You know, there's nothing you need to, there's nothing, as a matter of fact, that you can do to deserve God's love, because it's just automatically there. It's just there's nothing to worry about. You know, it's going to be. I started doing a little research. I'm working on a book on dying, and in the course, and I did some research recently online on deathbed confessions, because it's sort of interesting that people get to this last moment in their life, right? And for some reason they often feel they got to get it off their chest. You know, they got to tell. I read, it was just you can look this up online yourself, that there was a section called the 10 most interesting deathbed confessions, all right? Where one was a famous song that this woman had written, and she was accused of having stolen the lyrics from an old Irish tune, and she claimed that she didn't. It just so happened. And on her deathbed, she says, "I stole that. I stole that from that old Irish, you know." But there was something that she had to, and the murder ones have been, but there were several on there that were about murders that had taken place that people had gotten by with. I mean, you know, that they never found out. And then on the deathbed, they wound up saying, "Oh yeah, he's in the freezer in the basement." That was literally true in one case. And they were trying to figure out, but they decided that maybe she told that at the end, not so much because to get off her chest, as this, she didn't want her children to open that freezer after she was gone and find out that he was in there. Some of them were kind of funny. Okay, just to finish this up here, and then we'll take our first break. The holy instant reflects knowing by bringing all perceptions out of the past, thus removing the frame of reference you built by which to judge your brothers. All judgment can only be based on the past. And well, actually, we'll talk more about that after the break when we talk about special relationships. In the holy instant, free of the past, you see that love is in you, and you have no need to look outward and snatch love guiltily from where you thought it was. There is no exclusion in the holy instant because the past is gone, and with it goes the whole basis for exclusion. The holy instance, nothing happens that has not always been. I think that's one of the most interesting parts of the, you know, again, it's like waking up from a bad dream, and the dream is gone. It's all over. Nothing happened, you know. But you're back. You're just simply back to the place where you never left. And that's what the Course is saying. You know, heaven is a place you actually never left. Heaven. You can't. You know, that's why this whole life experience, I'm sure for all of us, is going to look pretty much like a dream once the body's gone and we don't have any attraction to it anymore, right? That's a part of the thing, is the attraction to the body. And there's another phrase that the Course uses a lot. It's called, and it's in this chapter a few times, the attraction of God. And just as the body has an attraction, or the ego has an kind of a pull, well, there's this other pull, this pull, this attraction of God. The reason you're here this afternoon is because you know about that, you've experienced that attraction. I mean, you know enough about that attraction that you feel the pull, and you also realize that this is a really good guidebook to help you to figure out how to get through. I mean, to make it real, to make it a living experience in your life, unlike something that some body wrote, some human body wrote, right? because we don't, this is not, Helen, as we all know, did not write A Course in Miracles. Just a few more phrases here. Fear not, the holy instant will be denied you, for I denied it not. Jesus is Jesus speaking. Jesus did not deny it. And through me the Holy Spirit gives it unto you, and you will give it. Right-hand column, the holy instants, there are no bodies, and you experience only attraction. There's the phrase attraction for God. See, if there's no bodies, where are you? And there's just, this is kind of like in being in a deep level of meditation, for example, transcending, having some sort of transcending the body kind of an experience, or a little bit what happened when I was in a coma. There was no body. And I think, by the way, the most interesting thing that's going to happen to all of us when we really let go of the body, the first thought we're probably all going to have is, well, I'm still here. Not as a body, but the mind. You know, the mind. You can't lose you can't lose that. You can't. You know, that's still here. That's still operative. You know. So what the hell were you afraid of? You know, letting go of this thing that was kind of weighing you down, and being awfully heavy. I got a call, by the way, from someone who may be watching this right now, or not right now, but will watch it on YouTube, this last week, about wanting to get out of here because she was full of cancer and pain, and wanted to talk to somebody who wouldn't tell her that she was crazy and that was an insane thought. I simply encouraged her to think about getting into a hospice program, because she's pretty close to needing to be into a hospice program. So I think the next step, and to find those loving souls there who can assist in this process. If it's tired and painful, and she said she was in constant pain. So, you know, if somebody's in constant pain, you know, and the cancer's throughout the body, it's time to go to a hospice, right? Going on with this. But in order to see this, it's necessary to give up every use the ego has for the body. And we may talk about that more after the break. And all not only the uses, but the misuses that the ego has for the body. Because the body is the ego's chosen home, and on the thinking that it's the chosen home, we can get very tied up into what we think are all of its needs, which have to be fulfilled. Let us join together in making the holy instant all that there is, by desiring it be all that there is. And then the following is, I think I've quoted this once before here, but I'll end with this and then we'll take our break. This is a description of a mystical experience from Ralph Waldo Emerson, which I think is almost a perfect description of what it is in just about 5 or 6 lines or so. This is in his book, Nature, his first book, which really made him famous. And it goes simply like this. Standing on the bare ground, my head bathed in the blithe air, and uplifted into infinite space, all mean egotism vanishes. I become a transparent eyeball. I am nothing. You got to get to nothing. You got to get to nothing, nothing, nothing. No thing. I am nothing. I see all. How do you see all? By being nothing. Right? But in other words, there's no ego here, right? The currents of universal being circulate through me. I am part and parcel of God. Let's take our break.